You're listening to a Good Egg Productions podcast.
So, anyone got any hot Valorant takes before we get started?
I've been workshopping this one for a while. My hot take at the moment is the Sheriff is a useless gun that should not be bought under any circumstances, especially in a professional game.
Why? Why though?
I mean,
Okay, so the Ghost is busted right now. Anyway, you can just spam body shots into somebody.
that's a hot take in and of itself.
For half the price of a Sheriff, you can get yourself a Frenzy, which you can literally just hold W, hold the mouse one, and win a round with.
Yeah, but it's about the
Or-
range. No, on an eco.
Listen. Or for 100 more, you could get yourself a Bucky, play a close angle, and win the round. The issue with the Sheriff is it doesn't even one shot at long range, and you're making yourself have to take these like aim duels where you're having to tap heads. You could buy a Bucky and you could sit in a corner.
Yeah, I love the Bucky with all my heart, so I can kind of agree with that actually.
You could buy a Frenzy and rush a site. The Sheriff feels way too weak for me right now to warrant buying. I think it needs to be worth less money or more bullets, or at very least a one-shot
Can
headshot.
I please put forward the case for the Sheriff? So,
Okay.
say you're an operator player, like me, the greats, me,
Oh no.
Waddell, Tens, all of them, artists.
Right.
Say you're an operator player, and you can't afford an operator. Everyone else in the server has got rifles, right? I can't buy a rifle because I'm saving up for an operator, so I'm gonna go to the Sheriff for
No.
that sweet long range damage that you can't get from a Bucky.
It's not even a one-shot headshot.
See, I'm somewhere in the middle on this. Like I don't buy the Sheriff personally because I own straight trash and it's not reliable. But there's no way you can walk up to Scream and be like, "Yeah, Scream, buy a Ghost instead," because it doesn't
but
make sense. The man buys a Sheriff on full buy rounds.
No. He only buys a Sheriff on full buy rounds if he also has his ultimate, right? Like, literally, and my argument is, unless you have Scream level headshot accuracy, which you don't, right? It's not necessary.
Debatable. Okay.
No, so I think, to be fair, I'm more in the agree column. Spend the extra 100, get a Bucky.
Well,
Get a
I'm
Bucky.
I'm still advising our viewers. The Sheriff is a great gun. It's a whole 100 cheaper than the Bucky.
But the Bucky
What
one
is
shots
100?
close and medium range.
Invest.
It's unreal.
Invest in yourself, gamers.
Buy
Invest in yourself.
Bucky.
Buy the Bucky today.
Another point in Sheriff's Corner is that you can't up your headshot rate by playing with the Bucky because it doesn't count as a headshot.
But that literally
You up your
you
win
can up
percentage.
your you can up
That's
your
the main
emo.
thing.
You're not soft in thinking you can just headshot machine people.
So there we go. Depends whether you back yourself or not.
Buy a Bucky.
Buy
Save
the
the
Bucky.
world.
I agree.
Don't get in my way!
I'm Eleanor Orton.
My name's Tyler J.
I am Morgan J.
This is the Viper's Pit. It's been a crazy past couple of weeks in Valorant. This episode mostly focusing on the EU scene. We've had Red Bull, which was surprisingly a really good tournament, to say that.
Even with a bad format.
It's the best format EU's ever had. What do you mean?
It's truly
Best of fives.
yeah, despite the format and despite the fact that a lot of people going into it, I'm assuming, thought that teams will be saving up strategies for challenges, which didn't seem to happen too much. People seem to be really giving it their all. I know in a pre-game interview, Eccles said that this is one of the last chances that they were giving themselves to really whip themselves into shape, and you got to respect it. They almost did it. They almost won.
I mean, Team Liquid in that tournament, right? Like, they played very well. Like, you have to think they were. I think they've easily cemented themselves as the best Icebox team in Europe, if not the world.
Easily, I would say the world, 100%.
Yeah, the Liquid Valorant put out a tweet, which is Icebox is our box. They talked about it on the broadcast, and I think it's true. I think, especially in EU and probably a couple of other regions, I think they're untouchable on Icebox. The way they play it is great. I just wish they'd they'd play that well on other maps.
It's interesting because Icebox is going to be their box, but they've kind of boxed themselves out of bind.
Please stop.
Ah,
Stop.
that was terrible.
You see,
but
what happened
you
there?
are right.
What happened there is I thought of a good pun and then I forgot it, so I had to go
Oh,
with my
no.
backup.
Oh, that's not
good
good.
fun.
The backup pun.
That's never
Yeah,
good.
I mean, their bind. So the weird thing I thought about their bind is immediately they weren't playing Sova. I know Sliggy mentioned on his stream before that none of them really like Sova. Soulcast is normally the Sova player, but he doesn't really like it. He much prefers Sky. And so they're running this like double duelist comp with Soulcast on the Sky, Link on the Raze, Scream on the Jet, and then Echlozome and Cryptix on the Sentinel. But I think you end up in this really weird place where Link is on this duelist, and while I think Link is like a really, really flexible player, I just don't see like when you have Soulcast on your team, one of the better Razors in EU, right? It just feels wrong to have anyone else on the Raze but him.
Like I get what you're saying, but I love the way they played the Sky. I love it. I think if you watch that game, there's a Haven game as well. He plays Sky and Haven, and you look at the way he plays, and it's so good. I've never been as impressed by the way these teams are using Sky. It's happened all the way through, and Sky is getting better and better. And Soulcast is at the front of that. You look at how he plays. Like look at the bind game they played in the final of Red Bull.
Against G2.
Yeah, against G2. He outfragged Scream, top fragged, went even on KDA. Yeah, it was a stomp, so it kind of counts less. But I think he has particularly a lot of potential on Sky. I agree with you. I don't know if Link on Raze is the right call, but Soulcast on the Sky, I like, and I hope we see more of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Soulcast on the Sky. I would say matches Soulcast on the Raze. He's a really good player, and I'm really happy that they've not stuck to the gun, saying that stuck to form, I guess, saying that they need a Sova. They've decided that they want to make sure that all the players can shine. So I know there was a lot of people doubting Soulcast after I can't remember which tournament it was.
It was after First Strike.
Yeah,
It
take
was
that
very
on Twitter,
stupid.
idiots.
There was the whole Scream and team narrative.
This is the worst narrative in the entire of the Valorant project. People do it with Tens and friends as well. You know, when he was playing, and it's stupid. The reason Scream can get 30 kills is because he's playing with 4 support players who are putting him in good positions every single time. Don't get me wrong, Scream is cracked, right? He would play fantastic on his own, but they set him up for success. To say kick people because they're not like outfragging Scream is a ridiculous argument.
Soulcast and the rest of the cast.
Oh no,
That was bad.
Soulcast and you're an ass.
Thank you.
That was even worse.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about their bind. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw composition changes going into future games, just because like their bind is and I think their bind has also historically not been good. If you remember, I'm sure everyone remembers the 2 versus 5 Sheriff round was of course on bind. I think something fundamentally about how they play bind is off.
And to be fair, like I don't want to sound like we're giving Liquid too much stick, because you got to remember, I don't think it was just Liquid losing that game, particularly the bind game. G2 played out their minds, right?
They sure did.
Like you look at, I'm gonna say this could definitely be a hot take as well, but Ardis is the best player on G2 and the best player in EU.
You're just saying that because he used to be on Fish 123, and you're a Liquid.
I love Liquid. I love Fish 123. I also love Ardis. But you look at how he plays, man, and to say he does all this on the support agents. He's like on bind particularly, like which is what we're talking about. He plays the Sova, and he's
walking on
nuts.
water.
He is literally walking on water, and like. I get it. Liquid definitely have problems that they need to fix, and like I think things could have gone differently, and they could have taken that Red Bull final against G2. But G2 are just great, man. Like there's a reason why this is 17 out of 17 in finals right now. Like they're so good.
The thing about G2 is I just don't think it's a long-term play. I think like they brought Zeke in, but he isn't IGLing yet. You've still got this weird situation where Mixwell's IGLing kind of, but everyone has input. I think it will get messy, and like they still aren't, even with the addition of Neil Zeno, playing particularly tactically at all.
No, they are. They're one of the puggiest players in the world. Is definitely going to be said.
And I think it's just not long term. And I think they realized that. There was an interview a while ago where I believe Ardis said, we'll change our style when we need to change our style. But I mean, I guess that brings us on nicely. It's probably worth talking about G2's loss to NIP in challenge.
Yeah. That's what a segue. Wow.
I am a professional.
Clearly,
The thing here is, I'm sure you guys thought the same as me going into this game. I thought NIP didn't stand a chance.
I barely watched it. I just assumed G2 were gonna stomp it.
See, now I watched this game, and what NIP have done with this new roster is so impressive.
Yeah.
Like, to say NIP have been kind of the butt of roster jokes for a long time, and the amount of good players NIP have had and then got rid of.
It's been a revolving door of players, but I honestly think now they've settled on a roster that can really get to that tier 1 level, that can really be fighting at the top. I mean, they totally showed that in the challenges events. They totally showed their potential there.
I mean, Existence, like, I think obviously the impact he brings to the team is something that we can't overlook. I mean, the kind of structure they play with, and one thing that I find fascinating is they're running this no duelist comp quite a lot.
Yeah, now that's one of the most interesting things in professional Valorant right now. There is, I haven't seen any other team play like that with
especially on Icebox as well, because they're a really interesting Icebox team, because they're not only the only team that doesn't actually run a duelist on Icebox, they also don't run a Viper on Icebox. They've got the Omen instead.
Yeah.
I mean, really strange.
To be fair, if you're on a team with Korea who's literally played Omen since the day the game came out, I'm not gonna say to him, you better move to Viper. Like, the man is a beast on Omen. I'm pretty sure he was the top fragger. He was the best player throughout that entire series. And like the Omen is their duelist for that. He's so aggressive. He's TPing aggressively. And you look at it, even the rounds where he wasn't getting the kills, he took the space. He made the space like a duelist makes on the Omen.
Yeah, I think what Emil's done with this team, and I'm assuming working with Existence, a lot of these strategies, like, I know we spoke about it briefly when we were watching the game, is you've all heard of Flash and Dash, you've heard of a Vision Strikers play. Well, they were doing a similar concept, but with Flash and TP. Korea was starting a TP and then Breach flashing for him. Like,
that's so good.
They
like,
use the Omen.
I love to see.
They use the Omen in this like aggressive, like, initiate a duelist way that is really, really cool. And another thing we haven't spoke about the NIP roster that we kind of should is JD. Like,
he's out of his mind.
He's like, what, 17, and he's just fragging out. Like,
17.
He's sick. Like,
he's a child.
his Sage is unreal. Like, his aim is fantastic. He is genuinely dominating on these servers. That is the exact kind of addition NIP needed, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, the highlight was watching him on that split game where, like, it was he just really stepped up. He rose to the occasion and he destroyed. And you saw, like, I mean, G2 had big problems on that split game. Normally on split they rely very heavily on Ardis, who had a very bad day on that split game. But that's partly because JD was just doming him every round.
I do think that's a tactical move, like because I think what NIP have done is they've watched VODs. They've noticed how much Ardis. I don't want to say carries, but certainly he gets a lot of first bloods, I would say, and a lot of the more like consequential first bloods. So I think they've seen that and they've watched VODs of G2 play. They've seen where Ardis has gone and they've sent JD after him, because the same was happening in the last tournament as well. They consistently went after Ardis because I think they know that this is what matters. Is one of the things that really matters.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, they did a very good job of just muting him. I mean, he was -12 on the day, right, on the game. So, but I mean, how much of that is like Ardis in his own head, tilting, missing shots? Obviously, it's all online at the moment. We don't know. Could be any sort of tech issues as well.
For sure.
I think that does go to show how much impact Ardis has for this team, especially on his raise on split.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that's the problem with G2 is that like they're kind of delicately built and balanced. And while everyone on the server for G2 can frag out, and we've seen it happen, there's no denying that Ardis and Mixwell are kind of put in these roles to frag. Specifically Mixwell more so, but Ardis as well on split. And they're kind of given the opportunities to get these entries and these first bloods. And then what G2 do better than any other team is they do, great like mid-rounding and playing off one another that just comes so naturally to them.
Yeah.
But
It's especially astonishing considering that they don't have a proper IGL. The mid-round stuff is incredible.
yeah, but I think when you get rid of their entries and the support players, you Pasitek and Piff and are kind of left over, you can beat G2 that way, I think, and I think that's how Nip did it.
So do you think going forward, so look at the next best, like the next set of qualifiers coming up, we're going to all be best of one until the final, right? Do you think, how long until more teams figure out this formula to beat G2? Because
I don't think it's as solid a formula as it's not like we said, what you need to do to beat G2 is shut down Ardis and Mixwell. And we can say, oh, just shut down Ardis and Mixwell.
Yeah.
But you have to remember we're talking about two of the best players in Europe. It's not like, obviously you can game plan and you can kind of, there are probably only a few teams in Europe. There are probably only a handful of teams in Europe that can game plan to beat G2 and pull it off.
Yeah.
I think plenty of teams could watch G2 VODs and figure out ways to beat them.
Yeah, it's so different when you're in that server.
What G2 do better than anyone else is bringing back dead rounds. Yeah, how many clutches do we see? How many rounds that just look over and we're like, they should just save their weapons now. So
for me, in particular, when you talk about G2, all you hear about is Ardis and Mixwell. But look at, honestly, Pith. Like he doesn't frag out like the rest of them do, but he's on the Cypher. But as you look at Pith, there is so many rounds that he just shouldn't clutch, but he does. And like the way he plays Cypher is fantastic. The fact that he's one of the only people who pretty much exclusively plays Cypher. I know he played Viper on Icebox, I think, didn't he? But
yeah.
Apart from that, like he's stuck by Cypher the entire way, and it shows. He's so good on that agent, and like he's just as reliable. This is what I love about G2 is everybody talks about the big names, but literally all 5 of those players could join any other team and become the most cracked player on that team, I think. And that's why they're so dominant. What I do think is interesting. So you look at how G2 play, like we said, it's the most aggressive thing in the world, and it works. And then I think it's definitely important to talk about the other side of the spectrum where it's all about team play. You're looking at Fnatic and FPX, I suppose. Like now that to me, like if you could take Fnatic styles of strategy and you load that into G2, they're unstoppable. They win VCT.
See, I don't know if I agree. I think there are separate styles and they are good at it. I don't think if you took Boaster's playbook and you gave that to Neil Zenio and you went, here you go, I don't think G2 would be any better. Because that's not them. That's not their style of play. That's not their identity, right?
Yeah, there is a reason why when they trialed Z, they trialed him for the IGL role and just realized that they just couldn't play. They just couldn't play like that. That's just not how they work.
But how sustainable is that?
Well, like we said earlier, it isn't sustainable. But I would argue G2 are still undeniably the best team in Europe at the moment. Until it gets to the point where we can sit here and go, G2 are 5th, G2 are 4th. Like until we can get like to that point, it's working.
Yeah,
And,
I can definitely see that.
Like I said, what G2 thrive on is these mid-round situations, on the fly adaptations and that's where Fnatic struggle, which is why Fnatic have all these systems in place. These systems are in place for Fnatic because they have younger players who are less experienced, who, Mo, Mystic, Doma, don't even come from TAC FPSs.
Yeah.
So these systems are in place for Fnatic to to let them work like this well-oiled machine, right? And that's what works for them. But I just don't think if you take Boaster's playbook and give it to Neil Zinio, it changes anything.
I feel like G2 must be such a hard team to coach.
Yeah,
I feel like he really has his work cut out for him.
I mean, it's a team with, like you said, 5 fraggers. 5 like
Yeah.
good players, experienced players, apart from maybe Ardis. But like with that comes egos, and whether
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to speculate too much, but there are probably egos on that team, and there are.
I don't think it's speculation to say there's egos. We've
We'll
all seen
see- we'll
Ardis'
see
Twitter
Ardis.
feed. Like, it's that. I
Yeah.
mean,
I think dealing with egos is hard anyway. Like
Mhm.
in my experiences as a coach, briefly, it's hard when you have these ego players that they think they know right all the time, and
Yeah.
so Neil definitely has to take look at Sliggy and how he runs his team. Right, Liquid is Sliggy's team.
Yeah,
He said
runs the
that
show.
he runs that team. Neil Zinio, he can't take this authoritarian approach. It isn't his team.
Mhm.
He is on a level with the players to help them and work with them and help them build what they want to build, but it is not Neil Zinio's team. I don't think it ever will be or could be with the
Yeah.
players on G2.
Oh,
And I think that's
definitely
just
not.
how different people respond to different types of coaching and things like that, and what makes them better. Whereas, like I say, a team like Liquid or even Fnatic, although I think Boaster takes off more of the leadership role than Mini does,
Mhm.
it's the same kind of thing. It's a bit more authoritarian. And I think that works better with the younger, more inexperienced players that need the kind of structure.
Yeah, I think the big, like you mentioned before, it's about their backgrounds. You look at that, everybody on G2 comes from CS:GO. Like they're all on the same page situationally. Whereas you look at Fnatic, where they're not. There's a mixture. Boaster obviously played CS and like League or something. Like there's a whole mix.
Yeah,
They
League
need that
breaks out.
leader to take forward and go, this is what we're doing. But on G2, they don't need that. They all played CS:GO. They all have that kind of. They're all on the same page instinct wise, and I feel like that's partly why. Another question I have about G2 is, I mean, from what we've seen so far, is Zeke an improvement on David P?
Yes.
Um,
I believe so. I think David P, right, back in the beta on his like lurky Sage, go at what he did. He was the best Sage player in the early days. He used to destroy teams. But, the Sage meta fell off. They moved him on to Breach, and he was mediocre.
Mm.
He was an okay Breach. But that's kind of where he fell. And Zeke coming in, like, look at Zeke on the Reyna
Yeah.
on Icebox,
Yeah.
like that kind of performance, David P wasn't having. Zeke is like an exceptional talent and aimer, and maybe eventually IGL of the team.
Yeah.
Whereas I
think-
just don't think David P was.
I do think David P can be incredible, right? I just don't think it was working for G2,
Yeah.
especially towards the end of David P's run.
Mhm.
Zeke is definitely an improvement for G2. I don't know whether I would say that Zeke is necessarily a better player than David P.
Yeah.
Um,
In my mind, I think that David P would be a fantastic sixth man to a roster.
Mm.
I think you bring him in, he's like, you can play him on your Icebox maps and your splits, like Icebox and Split, where Sage can be really powerful. You bring him in, you make him not necessarily a one trick, but like he could provide really good input to the team. He could really provide like good rotations. And having a 6-man roster could be great for most teams anyway. And it allows that specialization. You bring him in as your Sage guy. Like, I think David P could do really well at some teams.
I just don't know if David P's ego would allow him to be a sixth man. I mean, it's an open secret that David P is kind of toxic in his ranked games, and
Mhm.
he gives it on Twitter here and there. Like, I just don't know if he is gonna go to any roster as their kind of sub sixth man, rotate in and out.
Is he playing on a team right now?
he's technically still G2's sub.
Oh, that's
Well,
even more
he's on the
sad.
bench. He's on the
Oh,
bench.
That's even worse. Like, surely he wants to get back to playing tournaments and get back to competing. And if being a six man is the best way to do that, like, I'm sure he would take that hit. He might not like it, but like, it might be that or nothing.
I do wonder if he doesn't change his play style. If that people just obviously with lurking, people can come to just expect where you're going to be moving to, especially with a good IGL. Like when you're against a good IGL. So I do wonder whether that he'll just have to cut that out against some teams and just change his play style so that he can carry on playing. I think maybe he does have an ego, but he's talented. And I do hope we see him on another roster soon.
Yeah, I would like to. Ideally, I would like to see him on another tier, like top level roster where he can compete. He can play against G2, and I think I personally I hope this whole experience has been somewhat humbling for him, and he will come back just wanting to grind and
Oof.
just
Yeah.
trying to play the best Valorant he can.
Throwing hands on it in the first episode.
I'm saying how I see
David
it.
P. Toxic trash.
Welcome to the show, folks.
So, would anyone like to play a game?
Of course we would.
I- Never wanted anything more.
This is a segment I came up with as an idea. Right? I'm going to call it The Rush, maybe.
Right. When
That's
did you come up with
Valorant
this
related.
name? You didn't
Quick.
tell us.
I came up with this name 5 seconds before I came up with the round.
Okay.
So,
Before, sorry, you came up with a name before. you came up
yeah,
with
I
one.
was thinking of Valorant things. I was like, a rush. Okay, let's come up with a podcast segment based on that.
Good.
That's
So,
the
Very
best way.
prepared.
the idea is, thanks to runitback.gg and their fantastic API, I am able to gather all sorts of statistics about the Challenger Open qualifiers. Okay, so we're going to play kind of over under more or less game. Okay, we're going to set a timer for a minute. How it works is I'm just going to read off stats. I'm going to read off predictions. Okay, and you guys are going to have to predict whether the stat will be higher or lower for that particular thing in
That
the
sounds
next open qualifiers.
Are we
okay?
working together on this, or
You are working against each other.
Oh wow!
And what
Okay.
what I'll do is I will recheck these stats after the next open qualifier, and we'll see who got the most right.
Okay.
So
I don't want to brag, but I'm gonna win.
Sure, buddy.
okay,
Sure, buddy. Let the numbers do the talking.
Okay.
let
I
me
will.
just. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. 1
Okay.
second.
What's going? Are you going to ask the question, then we both answer? What are you thinking?
So it'll go question, answer, next question, kind of thing.
Why are we setting a timer?
I'll just do it on my phone
No, why are we setting a timer? Sorry.
because
it's the rush.
It's
El.
the rush. That's the name
We
of the
have to
segment.
be
We do it in a
quick.
minute. It's quick fire.
Okay.
We have to get as
Nobody
many
does a
predictions in
slow
as we
rush.
can in a minute. It's
Okay.
engaging and entertaining podcasting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Podcasting 101.
Yeah, you just
Go
do minute
quick.
segments.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'm ready. El, you
Starting
can
the
answer
timer.
first. Okay.
In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Soulcast had 96 headshots in the open qualifier compared to Scream's 95. Will Soulcast get more or less headshots than Scream next qualifier?
Less.
Less.
Okay. Twiston averaged 23 kills a game in the last qualifier, more or less.
More.
Less.
Ooh. Yashin averaged 2.8 ability kills a game, more or less.
Less.
More.
Fnatic won 37 rounds on bind in the open qualifiers, more or less.
More.
More. It's got to be.
Ooh. The average ACS of last qualifier was 194, higher or lower?
Lower.
Oh, okay. We didn't see a single 1v5 clutch last qualifier, more or less.
More.
Well, you can't
It
go
can't
less.
go less, can it?
Well,
Yeah,
more
no.
or the same,
Okay,
fine.
the same. There
More.
won't be one. No, there won't be one.
Vitality didn't play one map of Split. Well, they are.
The
That's the time.
timer.
I
Okay.
had
That
more
was
questions
intense.
lined up as well.
Well, okay. That was good. I hope I win.
How can you say that? Like they're gonna get less kills and less ACS. They're going to be against easier opponents on average.
You say that, but only 4 teams qualified.
Yeah,
And look at the teams that didn't qualify.
exactly.
Liquid
G2 were
Fnatic,
out,
G2.
Liquid,
No, I
Fnatic.
think so. I think the teams are better. Yeah, no, I'm confident. I'm going to win that.
Okay. Well, you're wrong, but that's fine. You can be wrong sometimes. That's totally legitimate.
That's a wonderful segment there, Tyler. Well done.
Do you guys just want to finish the stats? I spent ages on these stats. I
Yeah,
wanna say
you know
them.
what? Let's carry on. This is not the rush. We're now
Yeah, this
okay.
is outside of the rush.
we're post planting the rush right now.
Yeah, this is the post plant. So this one's a pretty interesting one, actually. Viper was played in 7 different icebox compositions.
Are we still doing more or less?
We can do the predictions or not, or we can just talk about the stats. I don't really care. Viper was in 7 unique icebox compositions.
I absolutely think we'll see more of that. Absolutely.
More
But, like,
unique compositions.
How much more unique can you go? I mean, I suppose you can, but
Yeah, I'm sure you do the
Yeah.
math.
Icebox is quite puggy a lot of the time. What they always play it, which means a lot of times individual players will be playing what they feel comfortable on, and then they'll have the Viper on top of that. Which is why I think that more teams will just, now that they've seen how well Viper can do on Icebox, they will just add Viper to whatever else they are currently thinking about using on Icebox, rather than building one team around Viper and everyone moving towards that team.
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense actually. I mean, like, I'm not sure if we're going to see it used as the only smoker or if teams want to use it with the Omen, because we've seen both. But I think it's definitely tending more to Viper as your only controller on Split, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the better way to do it.
I
Personally.
agree.
I think there's not enough space for an Omen. I mean, Omen's cool. He can use all the verticality stuff as well, but I think, you know, if you really want it, because you need the Sage as well, really, if you don't want to throw your games away. So, like, I just don't think there's enough space for an Omen. My my final stat,
Okay.
if you care, was that Looker averaged 8.8 assists a game,
Wow.
more or less.
He's playing support for the Alliance.
He's playing
right?
Breach. He's playing
Yeah.
Breach for Alliance, and doing it quite well. To say
Is that
he
the
was
highest.
it wasn't the highest, no.
You just
But I was just looking at Looker, and
Yeah,
I was
we
looking
wouldn't
at
go
his
over
Breach,
or under.
and I was like, you know, he's getting quite 8 assists a game is a pretty high average.
it's decent, yeah.
And I think I didn't get a chance to watch his Breach games. I don't know if any of the Alliance games were streamed or not. If they were, I didn't watch them. But from what I remember from Looker when he filled in with Big Clam and things, is he looked so much more comfortable playing
Mhm.
agents like Sage than he did the Jet Orp. Like,
Yeah.
he was a very good Jet Orper in beta, for Valorando and things.
Yeah.
For
Things have
early
moved
nip.
on.
But I think where he shines is on the kind of supportive role, where he can still frag out, but he doesn't have the pressure of having to frag out on the Jet Orp and
Yeah.
having to deal with that.
To round us out, do we want to go for MVPs?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
Anyone got a good MVP?
I've got a great MVP.
Go ahead.
This guy is the most valuable player for his
Okay.
team, in my opinion. And it's Element from Monkey Business.
Okay.
Did you watch the Monkey Business Guild games to start off with?
I watched one of the maps. I did not watch.
I think I watched.
Because-
I can definitely remember the Ascent map. Sorry, but
Go ahead, present your
I-
case.
I want to point you guys specifically to the Icebox map where he played Reina, right? With a 383 combat score, 31 and 14, 41% headshot percentage, 218 damage around. This
wow.
guy
That's
came in
insane.
and he just gave it to Guild on the Reina. Like, straight up, like, he doesn't care what strats you're pulling. He doesn't care about your, delaying post plant with Viper. He was charging and he was just tapping heads. And I think my most valuable player, do I believe Monkey Business deserve one of the first 4 spots in challenges? No, I do not.
Mhm.
But do I think they got there because of Element's performances on a lot of maps? Yes, I do. And that is why he is my most valuable player.
Yeah, I think we were all surprised to see Monkey Business get to that stage, let alone win 2-0 against
Yeah.
Guild.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
They played so well. As from what I remember of the games, I was really impressed with them. They had really good ability usage, which is something like you don't normally see from teams that are that young. But I was really impressed. And I mean, after what happened to them in Red Bull, where it was kind of a stomp and AKM and sort of Scream, I was a bit like, what's going to happen with these guys? You know.
Yeah,
But
for the listener, AKM said Scream is all aim, no brain.
The worst take I've ever heard, quite frankly.
yeah, but I'm really happy that they can bounce back. Again, like I said, the more top level teams we can have, like the closer the competition is, the better it is for everybody. The better it is for the viewer. Like I'm all for it. I really hope they can keep going with that roster in particular and really make stuff happen.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for our second MVP.
Okay, for me, it's got to be Existence for Nip. We
Ooh.
we touched on it briefly earlier, but like they drafted this guy in to be an all-star IGL breach player, and I don't know if any of you watched the post-game interview with Chihuahua after they beat G2, but it was I mean, it was a great listen. It was really good insight into the team. These guys are all feeling confident. They're all feeling good, and they're all happy with how it's going. But on every single question that Yinsu asked him, it eventually circled back around to God, I love Existence, and you can tell that these guys are so happy to be playing with it. I mean, you look, he doesn't. I mean, he's not a fragger. That's not what he's there for. He's the breach. But you look at it, and he was saying how much he taught them about positioning and spacing and how to run better defaults, and you can see every element of his class and leadership bleed through to the rest of NIP, and it's really given them that confidence. And they took down the kings of Europe, and they're through to the next round of challenges. And I think if you look in terms of value, he's the one for me. He's the most valuable player, particularly to NIP, but I think in general right now he's doing so much.
I don't think any of us can really argue with that. But he was looking great, and he certainly helped Nip achieve great things.
I mean, I've laughed at Nip the entire way. Like you say, it was a revolving door of people that could never quite get there. The best he could ever finish was third. And like now I'm really rooting for them. This guy has really turned them all around. He's making them all play really well. And like I'm excited to watch them. I want to watch more Nip games just to see what Existence does. I think he brings so much to the table for them.
Awesome. Let's just round it
your
out.
MVP?
I've
Go on.
got one. I may have already on the first episode subverted this this segment by not actually picking a player. My MVP selection is Waves coach. Ito Pata. I hope I've got it right.
wow.
Ito Pata.
You've done your research then.
I did try and find someone saying his name. Ito Pata. I'm not sure.
We apologize if you're listening.
This last tournament, full of upsets, right? We already spoke about the guild game. We spoke
Mhm.
about G2 Nip. And another upset, I think for all of us, was Wave Fnatic. So Wave ended up beating Fnatic, which I don't think anyone expected. Fnatic have been looking
I did not
Yeah.
expect that one
yeah,
bit.
Fnatic have been looking amazing recently. Watching the first map, it was Bind.
Yeah, I remember.
The first half was actually 9-3. Fnatic won the first half 9-3. Even though they seemed to get stomped, Wave were playing amazing in that game, right?
What?
No, honestly,
They
if you
played
watch it-
amazing in a 13-6 loss.
yeah, they lost Bind, but even on Bind, even on the map that they lost 13-6, they still put an amazing showing against Fnatic's pick, right? Fnatic are famously amazing on Bind, and Wave just looks amazing. Like every round, Wave were doing their absolute best to counter Fnatic's plays. We all know that their post plant strats of just constant mollies and holding it, and they were just expected. They just expected it. They clearly done their research. After I saw that first game, I thought, well, even if they get 2-0'd, they still are going to look like really good. I think
Mhm.
I would be excited to see it. And then they ended up taking the next 2 maps from them.
I will say I watched the Haven game in like I didn't really watch the Bind game because I thought this was gonna be a blowout, but I did watch the Haven game, and how Wave were like taking space and playing together in these crossfires. The
Mhm.
use of the sky was also pretty impressive on it. Like I was very impressed by their Haven game for sure. And this is a team I think like everybody underestimated. Like
Yeah.
they're a team that's been around like tier 2 and like the German scene for a while, but they weren't a team I ever thought could compete with
Well,
Fnatic.
exactly.
And so I do agree, Wave definitely played out of their minds.
Murray in particular, he was great. That
Yeah, he
entire
was
series.
nasty.
Like
He was nasty
I
on
mean,
the race.
the split game was far and away the most dominant. And you look at it, they won every single round on their attack. They they won the pistol and just kept it going. And that is, to me, winning your attack rounds is like it's the sign of a good team. It's the sign that your strategies are working, that you guys are able to take the initiative and do something with it. And that is exactly what they needed to do. And like they won that split game 13-6 against Fnatic, who just got signed, who are, in most people's opinion, a top level tier 1 team. Like it's impressive.
It's worth noting as well that Fnatic, when they were Summon FC, especially a little bit earlier on, were regarded as one of the better, if not the best, split team in Europe at one point.
Yeah.
The way they split. I know Anders TV made a pretty interesting video about their like split defaults and how they were winning so much on this attacker side split, and they were picking split a lot as their map pick in best of threes, as rare as they are in EU. They were really good on split. So for Wave to come and show up like that is very, very impressive. I was a bit taken aback.
I don't want to discount any of the players' performance. They were all playing great, but the reason I picked the coach out of that team rather than any of the players is because they weren't winning because they were getting first bloods. They were winning because they clearly knew Fnatic. They knew exactly
Yeah.
how Fnatic plays, and they were playing their strats to perfection.
That's exactly what you want from a coach, right? Like
Exactly.
makes sense. That's a good MVP pick.
Thank you. Thanks.
I mean, it's an MVC, but we move. We'll take it.
Anyone got any LVPs, least valuable players? Anyone?
The only one that springs to mind right now for me is it's from the Red Bull tournament, but Average Jonas. I see you. I see you posting those shock dart lineups for artists to use against your own team. Disgraceful.
Liquid Average Jonas.
Yeah, Liquid Average Jonas defeated the Liquid Valorant team. That one round. I mean, honestly, I love the lineup. I love that he's created this. I love Average Jonas. Fantastic guy. But I mean, it's unlucky and it's so funny that it happened to Liquid.
He just needs to stop tweeting during the games.
Yeah, that's rule number 1.
If he just stopped tweeting in the games, they'll win worlds. It's like someone. He's living at the facility, right? The Team Liquid facility. Like he needs to put his phone in a safe during Liquid games.
I just watch. Don't talk in Twitch chat. Just watch.
Yeah,
Just get-
they might win a game.
The lineup in particular you're talking about is the one where Liquid placed the Killjoy ult down, and Ardis had a lineup ready to counter it with his shock darts rather than using an ult.
On
Yeah.
A-Site Haven, yeah.
On the Haven game. Yeah. It's it's a fantastic clip, and the lineup is so good. If you're a Silver One Trick and you don't know who Average Jonas is, then you are not a good Silver One Trick. Go learn some of his lineups. Like they were. I mean, Silver's, my opinion, one of the most broken heroes. And when you can do stuff like that to counter, you can counter so many things.
Like
And
let's think, the shock darts are what, 200 each? That's a spend of 400 to counter an entire ultimate. Like
yeah, a round winning ultimate.
how many times have we seen Sovas save their ultimate for a Killjoy ult, and literally just to go for a 1-for-1 trade of ultimates? So the fact that you can just, just use 2 shock darts to nullify the ultimate, and then you can just use your ult, to take space with. You can use it to try and get kills with the tags. Like, like there's so much like nerd potential on Sova.
Yeah, but he is my LVP for defeating his own team.
All right, great. I think that's been us. That's been the Viper's Pit. I'm Eleanor Autumn, with Tyler J.
Woo, that's me. Hello.
And Morgan J.
That is also me.
Thanks for listening.